I would like for people to know where I got my resources from. What I try to do is I try to get as close to the original source as I possibly can. So what I've done was I brought a book that I study with, one of my study tools, and it's called The History of Egypt, or A History of Egypt. And this book that I have is from an archaeologist and an Egyptologist, and his name was Breasted. What I like about this book is the fact that it is very old. And I'm about to give you guys the date. I want to say 1912, but I want to make sure, and I am correct. This book was actually printed up in 1912. So the reason why I do this is because when people challenge me and they tell me where they get their resources from, you get your resources from the internet and Wikipedia or whatever, and I understand that, you know, they're good tools to assist, but when you have the actual source, no one can argue with you. It's almost like irrefutable evidence. Why is this important today? This is important today for us to understand our history, because a lot of people don't know how vast their history is concerning Africa. African Americans don't understand how vast their history is because we never tap off into our African descension, which is very dangerous, because like I always say, one of the reasons why I started this class is because we have a lack of identity. And when you don't know how rich your history is, you can be confused, and someone else can confuse you with your history. Not only can they confuse you, but they can also steal your history, and they can tell you that your history is something that is not. They can tell you that that's their history and not your history, and it leaves you with an emptiness. One of the main institutions that are responsible for us not knowing our history is the religious institution and also the educational institution. And the people who have the knowledge that know better, they tend to stay silent. I'm one of those people that chose not to be silent and to put it on the forefront, and hopefully somebody will change the way they think about themselves, the way they think at other people. It's nothing to not know the race of people, but we have to understand where other races of people got their information from. We have to understand that African history is the missing pages of world history. We have to understand that African history is the richest history in the world, hands down. And there's irrefutable evidence to back up what I'm saying. And those are the things that we're going to be looking at today. So when you leave here today, you're going to understand that not only is your history rich, but your history is irrefutable. It's undisputable. No one has such a vast history, such a complex history like African people. You ready? Okay. What we're talking about today is the pre-dynastic period of Africa. As you know, the most documented history of Africa is located in Egypt. All right? So the pre-dynastic period is the period that they know little about, but they do have some information on it pertaining to who ruled, you know what I'm saying, who was the king, the beginning of political structure, the beginning of war, beginning of, you know, anything pertaining to civilization. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, I don't believe that it's the beginning of anything, because the information and the archaeological finds that they have, evidently those people, they knew how to do what they were doing before that. That's just the most recent that the archaeologists can find. So if they are only able to date back to, let's say, King Selk, which is the pre-dynastic Scorpion King that we're going to be talking about today, or King Narmer, who is the first king of the first dynastic, the first pharaoh of the first dynastic period, that doesn't mean that it was not rulers before that. I get into debates and I get into conversations with religious people all the time. These kings that ruled, professional Egyptologists and professional archaeologists with their expertise has already dated these kings back over 6,000 years. So you're looking at a time frame of anywhere from 5,000 BC to 4,000 BC to 3,000 BC, which is anywhere from 7 to 5,000 years ago. That totally eradicates Adam and Eve. That totally eradicates in the beginning, because according to biblical history, man, or Homo sapiens, or civilization as we know it, didn't start until about 6,000 years ago. Okay, so how was there a king ruling 6,000 years ago if that was true? So I'm not here to bash anybody's religion. I'm not here to bash anybody with what they believe in, but evidence says, history says that something else was going on. History says that there was no Adam and Eve naked in the Garden of Eden, eating fruit and talking to a snake. History says that there was civilization going on. History says that there was a king, that there was a queen. History says that there were other gods. History says that there were other goddesses. And tangible history, which is archaeological finds, says that these things actually happen, and we can see it to this day. They have them in museums. They have them in the London Museum. They have them in the British Museum. They have them in the Cairo Museum. And they spend thousands and thousands and millions of dollars backing up what they got to say. So before I believe a slick-head preacher, I'm going to believe those people who professionally do this. You understand what I'm saying? I always use the example. If you want somebody to paint your house, you're going to go get a painter. If you want somebody to fix your toilet, you're going to get a plumber. You understand what I'm saying? So if I want to know about history, if I want to know about the history of man, if I want to know about the history of Homo sapiens, which I am, considered a Homo sapien, I'm not going to talk to a preacher. Now, if I want to know about theology, if I want to know about the Bible, then I'll go talk to a preacher. If I decide to do that, I might just want to talk to a theologian. But if I want to know about history, if I want to know about Africa, if I want to know about what really went on, I'm going to talk to an archaeologist. I'm going to talk to an anthropologist. I'm going to talk to an Egyptologist. I'm going to talk to a professor, someone who spends their life studying this stuff. Okay? So that's what we're talking about today. Egypt is the most documented. There were other kings and queens that ruled. I want to make that clear, because some people like to start with Egypt. I personally don't like to start with Egypt, but like I said, that's the most evidence that we can find. It's more clear. It draws a more clear picture. But you can bet your bottom dollar that it was something else going on. It was so complex, even in its early state, that we can only imagine what was going on. They say the step pyramid was the first pyramid. I don't believe that. You know what I'm saying? I believe that it was pyramids before, because where did they learn how to do that? You see what I'm saying? They had to learn from somebody else to do that. That couldn't have been the first. You feel me? So understand that when we talk about, even though we say pre-dynastic, it still goes back further than that.